There's a new version of the COVID-19 vaccine, and the CDC has updated its information as to what's considered up to date. How relevant is this vaccine in 2023? Let's talk about it. Hey everybody, it's Dr. David. So as suspected, it does seem as if the CDC has been moving into an annual COVID booster with new strains, okay? Or at least one strain seems to be the change so far. Kind of similar to what we've seen with influenza vaccine, where the scientists predict what will be coming around in the next flu season, or in this case, wintertime, in order to try to guess which vaccine would be the most protective against the vaccine. And as we've seen with flu vaccine, sometimes they get it quite right, sometimes they get it quite wrong. Okay. Now, as far as this specific bivalent vaccine that has come out, okay, what they are doing here is they target it specifically against a subvariant of Omicron, and it's called XBB.1.5. Okay, and so this particular this variant, the subvariant, is actually kind of already faded its way out. But being the fact that it is an Omicron of this XBB variety, they say that it should provide decent coverage for the vaccine, for the viruses in the subvariants that are coming forth in this upcoming winter. And I had done another virus about another video about this newest strain that's considered it's a variant of not concern, but just of awareness. It's something that they just want us to know about, because about 17% is this new Eris version. And of course, we have no idea what will be happening 2 months from now, 3 months ago, if things do start to rev up again. Okay, so taking all that into account, okay, now, first of all, one of the things that we do not know for this is if it does provide protection, how long will it provide protection for? Now, the most recent bivalent vaccine that had come out, within 4 weeks, it had already reduced to 48% effectiveness, and at 10 weeks, it was at 38% effectiveness. So within a relatively short period of time, the protection was pretty much waning off. Not only that, but in terms of preventing critical outcomes, hospitalizations, God forbid, worse, that with about 6 months after the previous bivalent was given, was it really no longer showing the effectiveness for protection. So, as we kind of have seen, and of course with things changing, that this booster vaccine is not providing a tremendous amount of long-term protection for people who take it anyway. Okay, but of course, it does provide some level of protection for a short period of time. Okay, now in terms of side effects, no reason to suspect that this would be any different than other previous COVID vaccines. Very similar, same messenger RNA, same way that it's given, etc. So the side effect profile, what we've learned about myocarditis, obviously there's more information now coming out about side effects associated to the vaccines, and in terms of some updated research and reports on that. So I would expect it to be the same. I don't expect this to be a safer vaccine. Okay, now, in terms of, and actually, I misspoke. This is actually no longer a bivalent vaccine. So the bivalentness of the previous one had the original 2019 into 2020 version, the original virus in that first vaccine. Okay, and for a while they then added in the newer version and left the old one. They've actually taken the old one completely out now, so it's now just this one. So pardon me for misstating that a little bit there. But so it's not bivalent; it's monovalent, meaning there's only one variant in there at this point. Okay, now, so as with everything, we always talk about weighing the risks versus the benefits. Now, it is important to understand that 96% of people now in America have protection against COVID, have seen it, they have antibodies for it. So it's not like the COVID of 3 years ago where nobody had protection for it. Most people have protection. And of course, the new variants, these new Omicron variants that keep on coming out, they continue to be more contagious, which is why people have been running through it again. But it continues to be less dangerous overall. And that's certainly a trend that we've seen ever since Omicron started. Okay, now who might benefit from the vaccine? Well, I guess people who have immunodeficiencies, people who may be around somebody who is elderly. Certainly elderly populations are more at risk overall. And of course, we've talked about people who have underlying obesity and asthma and other types of things, but being around other people, if they haven't had it recently, of course, there's always the potential of spreading it to others as well. So that's something everybody can take into consideration when they're weighing their own pro versus con list, which I do encourage people to write out, because if you're contemplating it, make sure that the benefits do outweigh the risks for you or for your family. Okay. Now, I do have some ongoing concerns, though, that we've talked about before about long COVID, the long-term effects of people who catch COVID. Okay. And it's still an issue. It really is. Okay. And I know people have, there's been talk about, does the vaccine protect against that? To the best of my knowledge, there's still no data that actually shows that if a person does catch COVID, that having the vaccine would prevent against it. And of course, we're seeing only the short-term benefit from the vaccine in the first place when people are taking it anew. Okay. So, really that's kind of where I'm at with this. How much protection is this going to provide for somebody? Yes, by all means, it's being universally recommended. And we've seen that like less than a third of the population has been taking the vaccines for a while. Now, in terms of what's considered up to date, now this is kind of interesting because we always had heard if you didn't take 2 vaccines, you weren't up to date. Then it was 3 vaccines and then the booster, etc. Well, the CDC has now said that anybody who has not had a COVID vaccine before, taking just this one has you considered up to date. All right. Now, I think it's a fair question to ask if a person hasn't had a COVID vaccine by now, right? 3 years into this whole thing, how likely is that person going to decide, hey, I'm going to now go ahead and get a vaccine, especially since 96% likely they've had COVID and, of course, they've survived it and they have immunity for it, right? So, again, another fair question for people to be asking. But overall, we know without the protection being there for a long time, so it's certainly a way to look at it, and maybe I have shown you some other ways of thinking about this as the decision process is being made and as we are being told that everybody needs to get it. Have a nice day.